This is an instructional video that will show the steps required to field install the motor torque upgrade to existing Model MX2 or PPD-2 Hard Drive Destroyers. The kit includes all tools and supplies needed for the upgrade, except for a sharp-tipped needle-nose pair of pliers and a piece of wire. The first step is to remove various parts of the housing to gain access to the existing sprocket and chain that need to be replaced. First, remove the drawer. To remove the housing to gain access to the sprocket and chain, we first need to remove the door. Using a T15 Torx head, I'm going to be using something a little bit different to speed things up, but first remove these 4 screws here, here, and here. Take note, the 4 screws that mount the door are the only 4 screws that have internal tooth lock washers, so make sure you keep these with the door parts. The next step is to remove the front cover. You want to unplug J4 and J3, which are these 2 red connectors. We will then remove the rear panel. To do so, simply remove the screw here and here. And you'll do this on both sides. You'll then, using a T15 wrench, also remove the front cover. At this point, you'll see a U-groove going around the crank. We need to lower the cover directly downward and to clear it and pull out. The next step will be to remove the chain and the sprocket. To do so, use a T25 Torx wrench. Holding the mechanism on the inside so it doesn't rotate, simply remove this screw. A washer will also come with it. From this point, you can simply slide the sprocket off and remove it from the chain. To remove the motor housing from the destroyer, simply remove these 3 screws located on each side. At this point, simply take the destroyer, lifting it straight up, setting it to the side. Starting with the motor, with an 1/8 inch hex key, remove or loosen the set screw. It may take some persuasion, possibly a gear puller, but you can often remove them quite simple. Make sure you leave the key in the shaft. Then, taking the new 18-2 sprocket, insert the sprocket onto the shaft. The distance between the inside of the sprocket to the housing at this point should be 1 inch. This will allow enough spacing between the housing and the chain. Then, taking the chain supplied, run a wire through the first link and into the other link, and simply make a loop. You then want to take the chain, put it on the sprocket as so. This will make sense in a few minutes. And simply leave it like that. We will now reattach the motor housing to the destroyer. Making sure the wires are out of the way, just simply lift the destroyer up and place it on top of the motor housing. We will now replace the 3 screws on each side. Once the motor housing is reattached to the hard drive destroyer, take the 48 tooth sprocket supplied and put it in the same position as the previous sprocket. Taking the same hardware that secured the previous sprocket, using some Loctite 243, which is supplied in a small vial, simply reattach the sprocket. Test the setup to make sure that the sprocket spins fairly freely in the clockwise direction. If spun in the counterclockwise direction, it will turn the internal mechanism of the machine. But it should definitely spin fairly freely in the clockwise direction. If it does not, a small washer was supplied to go between this washer and the shaft that will space that washer out a little bit